Hi there, this is Hussein. Welcome to my channel. So this is what we will be creating in this tutorial. It's a motion design tutorial. I've been trying to do this tutorial in a few versions of Unreal Engine, and most of the time Unreal Engine was crashing on me simply because we are morphing the rounded cube into spheres. So I think that's the one that was giving me the problem, but I tried this again in Unreal Engine 5.7. Things seems to be working well. So let's do a breakdown of what's happening here. So here we have a cyc, which we're going to use from the motion design template. Then we have a ring, and as soon as go forward, you can see that the doors are opening. And then we have this rounded cubes popping up from beneath. And then it has that plate over there. And then after a couple of seconds, the color will start to blend from gold to chrome. And then we have the rounded cubes turning into spheres, and then they will fly away. In the next part, we'll be creating and setting up the project. Here we are in the new Unreal Engine 5.7 home panel. Click on the new project here, film, video, and live events. Click on motion design. So we'll give it a project location and call this MD_Morph tutorial and click on create. I'm going to remove a couple of things from here. I'm going to select this object here, which is the cloner system. I'm going to select the whole thing and press delete. We don't need that. We don't need the pedestal. Delete the pedestal out. We don't need the ring as well. We need the studio light. We need the cyc. So I'm going to just remove a couple of the cameras. I'm going to delete the camera 55mm and then 75mm. I'll just move back into the default viewport. I want to enlarge a bit of my real estate here. I do not need to have the panel over here. I'm going to just go and over and right click on the motion design tab. I'm going to say dock to sidebar. So I've got more space here to play with. Save this level. So I'm going to go and say file, save current level as. I'm going to make a new folder here. Right click, new folder, MD_Morph_TUT. Call this MD_, give it the same name, Morph_TUT. So we've got our folder there, MD_Morph_tut, and then we got MD_Morph_tut as the level itself. So I'm going to click on save. So let's now create the rounded cube, and we're going to clone them. For rounded cube, I suggest you to go into selection mode, go to motion design. If motion design is not available here, you need to go and enable the plugin. So if you go to edit plugins, type in motion, you must enable the motion design plugin over here, and then you will have to restart. So in my case, I already have the motion design mode. I'm going to select the motion design tab over here, and I'm going to choose 3D shapes, and I'm going to choose cube. So double click on it. You should have a cube in your scene. Press the F key to zoom in, and then I'm going to just bring it up a bit. In order to make it into a rounded cube, go to its details panel. You should see something called bevel size. All right. So bevel size at the moment is 0. So that's why it's the sharp edges. So if I put something maybe 15, so I get this rounded cube look. Of course, you can see some jaggedness at the edge. So that's the next one, the bevel number. Go to 5 or even maximum. I think we can go up to 8 is a maximum, and that looks very smooth at the moment. This is what we're going to put in the sequencer later, this cube and its bevel size. Yeah. So if I make it to, let's say 50, it should now become a sphere. So this is what we're going to animate and how to make the rounded cube into a sphere. So let's go back to 15 for now. So let's now clone this into the 3x3x3. So I'm going to go back to motion design, click on cloners, and then I'm going to select the grid cloner, double click on it. So we should have a grid cloner in our scene at the moment. What we're going to do is we're going to take the cube here and drag it onto the cloner. So it becomes part of the cloner. Then we'll delete the default clone. Okay, now we have those cubes in a 3x3x3 format. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this in a sequencer and test whether the morphing will work. Word of caution here that if your system is not up to par, your system might be struggling to morph the rounded cube into those spheres. So be careful and save often, right? So I'm going to click on save all now just in case. So let's bring these lights up a bit because we don't need the lights to be too close to the ground. So I'm going to just select all of them and bring it up. To brighten the scene a bit, go and select the studio lights, and then there's the skylight in there. So I'm going to click on skylight. If you scroll down, there's this option called intensity scale. I'm going to put to 5 for now, so it's a bit more brighter. So let's create a new sequence. I'm going to go and click on this clapperboard up here. Click on add level sequence, and let's put it in our MD Morph tutorial folder. I'm going to call this ls_morph_tut. Okay, I'm going to click on save. So I'm going to select my cube here, and I'm going to look for that bevel size properties here. At the moment it's 15. I'm going to drop a keyframe. Okay, by clicking on this little diamond on the right hand side. It's orange now. Previously it was a different color. And then you see that you have a bevel size and you got a keyframe there. Let's go to the end. It takes 5 seconds. It's too long. Let's go to maybe 1, 2, 3 seconds for them to morph into a sphere, right? So I'm going to click on this keyframe, change this to 50. I think maximum we can go is 50. So before you do anything, click on save just in case, right? So I'm going to press Ctrl+Shift+S. And now if I go back to the beginning and if I press play, right? So you can see the morphing now it's happening, right? It morphs from a rounded cube into a sphere. So that's what we need for this part. So in the next part, we are going to create the materials for the rounded cubes and the sphere. I'll see you in the next one. In this part, we'll be creating the material that we are going to apply onto the cubes here, or the spheres. So let's go ahead and create a new folder, and I'm going to call it materials. We'll jump into it, and then we'll create a new material. So we'll be creating a material that will allow us to use an effector that will blend the color A to color B. In this case, we're going to blend from it being a chrome color or chrome into a gold color. Do a right click in the content browser. I'm going to go to material, and I'm going to call it m_blend material. Let's open that up and let's start constructing the material itself. To create the material, let's click on the output node here. I'm going to create 2 color nodes. So if I press number 3 on my keyboard, press left click, click one of the first color node, and I'm going to duplicate that, Control D. And I'm going to give the first one maybe something like a white, and then the next one is going to be goldish yellow. I'm going to create a lerp node, L and left click, and then I'm going to hook up the RGB for the white color node into the A, and then the RGB for the yellow color node into the B, and I'm going to hook it up into the base color. Then I'm going to create metallic and roughness. So I'm going to do a right click on metallic pin, promote to parameter, and then I'm going to do the same thing for roughness, right click, promote parameter. This will allow us to give the object or the static mesh this metal kind of a chrome color. To allow us to control the blending using an effector, if you have enabled the motion design plugin, if you do a right click, you can look for something called cloner effector parameters. We are going to take the effector total weight, okay, into the alpha. So this is going to allow us to blend the colors from the chrome and from the gold color using the position of the effector that we'll be creating. So this is the final setup. So I'm going to click on apply, and I'm going to click on save. We'll make a material instance for this. So I'll do a right click and I'll say material instance, and I'm going to just put an MI blend material. So if I open that up now, you can see that we have this global setup for roughness and metallic. So metallic is going to be 1. So we get a nice gold color. In the next section, we're going to punch a hole in this floor over here, and we're going to start animating the cube so they come out from underneath this side over here. Okay, before we continue in this part, I missed a couple of things that I should have mentioned in the last part. Number 1, of course, is we have to give our cubes here some material. So before we can do that, let's go back to the master material. Select the output node here, and then you have to scroll down all the way until you find the list of usage here. Enable the usage with Niagara mesh particle. This is important because when you are using a cloner in the motion design, it's actually run by Niagara in the background. So we have to enable Niagara mesh particles here, and then you have to apply and save. And then now if I go and select my cube here, if I go into its material type, make sure that it's sent to assets, and then we'll just drag and drop the MI material into that slot over there. You will get some undesired results. If you look at it, our MI blend material looks as if it's chrome, but we have gold almost on every part of the cube. What I found out is that you will have to go out from this level and come back. I'm not sure why that is. And why are we getting gold instead of chrome? Because if you open up MI blend, there's the gold color on top. This is the main color, and then there's the chrome. So if I change this around, that's to chrome and then this to the gold color, And then now we're going to get chrome instead of the coal. So we'll just stick to this for now. Just save all. Pop over into a different level. Just going to jump over here and then go back into that level. Morph tutorial. And now we see everything's okay. So I'm not sure why that happens, but that's something that you have to do. So again, I'm going to always be in a default viewport, and I'm going to close sequencer and remote control. That's done. And the other thing that you could do is, if you go back to the master material, just enable parameters for the two colors. You can change them in the material instance. So you do a right click and then promote them to parameters. So in this section, I'm going to create a hole in this cyc. So if I move away, you can see that actually it's a cyc that comes with the motion design template. So we're going to punch a hole into here, and then we'll animate the cubes rotating up, like what I showed you earlier. So just make sure that the position of the clone is in that 0, 0, 0. I'm going to hide the cloner for now. Go to the modeling mode, and then I'm going to choose cylinder, and I'm going to just put a cylinder here somewhere onto the cyc, and I'm going to change a couple of parameters here. So I'm going to change the radius to 250. The height, I'm going to leave it at 100. Radial slices, as you see that we can see some jaggies at the edge here. So we need to remove that. So I'm going to go back to modeling. I want to put 64. The other thing that you have to make sure that when you're creating this cylinder, make sure that you change it per face. Otherwise, when we punch a hole later into this cylinder, you will see jaggedness at the edge. Before I click on accept, make sure that we are in a 0, 0, 0 position. And I'm going to click on accept. So I'm going to duplicate my cylinder so I can have two of them just in case. For this cylinder, go back to modeling mode, select both of them. The cyc, in this case is called cyc 2. I'm going to duplicate the cyc as well, just in case. So I'm going to select cyc 2 and select cylinder. And go to modeling mode, go to boolean, under model, boolean to punch a hole. So let's see, difference B and A. And let's switch out the eyeball for this cylinder and that cyc for now. So it should be A over B. Click on accept. Okay, now we have a hole here. And if I enable back my cylinder 2, still there. So select cylinder 2. And now we're going to make like a hole inside this cylinder. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create that edge over there, the ring. Okay, to make a hole in this cylinder over here, cylinder number 2, I'm going to just raise it a bit. And then we are going to use our modeling tool again, modeling. And I'm going to go to model. I'm going to click on polygroup edit, select the top surface, modeling model again, and click on inset to have a bit of the border or the edge for this cylinder. And then now we have another surface. Go back to modeling again, model, do a push pull, and we're going to push it all the way in. And then we'll click on accept. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a bevel on the edges of this cylinder. Okay, select again the cylinder, select modeling, and then now we can go to model, poly edit. We're going to select the edges here, select once and then shift, select the inner one, back to modeling, and I'm going to choose bevel. And here we have an option of changing the bevel parameters. So I'm going to say maybe 2. Like zoom in, you can see the edge is a bit smoother. Subdivisions to 2 is still good. Click on accept action and then click on accept again. Then push it down into the hole. Create another material, m_basic. So I'm going to open that up. It's going to give it a simple base color. Make it white for now. And we're going to enable metallic and roughness. I'm going to apply and save. And we can use this for any of the other surfaces. So I'm going to do a right click here, material instance. I'm going to call it m_gold. And I'm going to open that up. Enable metallic. Let's make it to 1. And then I'm going to click on base color, give it that nice gold color. Save, close that. So we're going to drag and drop and put it onto the cylinder. Right, so I can rename that now. Let's call it cylinder. The cyc has been changed to the name is called boolean now, so it doesn't make sense to have the word boolean. So I'm just going to call it cyc 1. So that's going to be the main cyc. And then we have another one which is cyc. Let's call it cyc 2. And then now you can drag it into there. So that's part of the props now. Let's bring back the cloner. Okay, now we can animate the cloner. Let's go back to our sequencer. So I'm going to create a bookmark, Control 1. Select the cloner. I'm going to look for the location and rotation. So with your playhead at the beginning of the timeline, So I'm going to click on location and rotation. So we have just dropped 2 keyframes for the cloner. This is going to be the end keyframes, right? This is where they're going to end up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that and I'm going to drag out to maybe about 2 seconds. So in this position at the beginning, it needs to be inside and it needs to rotate 90 degrees to the right. Even 180 is fine. So let's try that again. You have to drag it slowly. That's what we wanted. The morph cannot happen until the cubes have come to a stop. So we're going to delay the morphing. So what we're going to do is we're going to lengthen a bit of our sequence here. Take it to 10 seconds for now. So I'm going to just drag this forward. So the morph will happen once the cube has come to a rest. So it's spinning and then it stops. And then this is where the morph starts to happen. So I'm going to save that. In the next section, we are going to come back and start constructing the doors and of course the platform underneath that. Here you can see that there's actually a little plate there. Okay, we're going to create that. See you in the next part. Okay, welcome back. So in this part, we are going to create the doors for the cubes to pop up from beneath. If you notice that I'm having some issues with my sights here, so I've got 2 sights enabled, so that is why we're having a bit of a Z fighting. So I'm going to disable sight number 2, and I also noticed that I've lost the material for sight number 1 because during the Boolean operation we had that the material just disappeared. So what we can do is we can select sight number 2, double click on this material for sight number 2, and then we'll browse to that part there. So it's inside the toolkit here. I'm going to make a copy of that. So I'm going to just drag it into our Morph tutorial. I'm going to say copy over there. MI site 1, just drag and drop. The other thing that we need to do is if I were to scrub this forward, you can see there's some black reflections on the cubes here. That's because if you notice there's nothing over this side, right? It's black. So that's why we have the reflections. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take site number 2. I'm going to pull it out. Enable that, right? Pull it out. And I'm going to rotate that 180 degrees. So let's rotate that around and let's push it back forward, something like that. And if I go back to my bookmark, you see now the reflection is not there anymore, right? That's the reason why we have 2 of this. So let's now work on the doors. I'm going to disable the cloner for now. So let us look inside here. It's nothing. For us to create the doors, we will just have to use some simple shapes. I'm going to go to make a shape. I'm going to say make a shape. I'm going to call it a cube. I'm using a cube because we want the thickness. Rename that to door 1. Size it up and we can make it to 0, 0, 0 for now. Okay, I'm going to size it up, make it thinner. Yep, that's good enough. All right, we'll put it in underneath the site. Then we'll push it somewhere in the center. So to ensure that it's right in the middle, let's change the view to top and then we'll see that it's almost in the center. There we go, it's in the center, right? And then whilst we are here, we can duplicate the door because we need 2 of those. So I'm going to just do that, right? So now we got door 1 and door 2. Let's jump back to perspective. Now we have the door. Okay, for the doors, I'm going to give it that chrome look. Content browser. Let's go to materials. I'm going to duplicate this material. MI gold, Control D. I'm going to call it MI chrome. And let's apply it to the door. Okay, door 1 and door 2. There you go, right? Cool. So we got the door. Now we will animate the door. So when the cloner or the cubes pop up, they will open up in sync. Select that and select this and then we push forward. Give it 2 seconds to open the door. What we need to do now is we'll take the doors, drag them into the sequencer, save the sequencer, and we'll drop a keyframe for both of them on the location, right? Location and location. That's where they are in a closed format. And then we will take 2 seconds to open them up. It might be too long, but we'll see. Maybe 1 second is good enough. So I'm going to go to 1 second. Okay, and I'm going to open the door. This case, door 1. Push it right out. Then door 2. Push it right out. Okay, make sure that it's open. A bit more. There you go, right? So let's see whether it works for us. So we have the doors up there too fast. So I'm going to slow it down. So I'm going to go to 2 seconds and drag this over, Save. Yep, that's a good speed. And then it pops up. Okay, so that's done. And now we're going to work on a platform that comes underneath the cubes. Okay, I think we should bring the cylinder down a bit. It's a bit too high. So I'm just going to pop it down a bit like that. And let's see whether it pops up. Yep, that's perfect, right? So I'm going to save that. Control-Shift-S. And now let's work on the disk. For the disk, I suggest you to use the motion design mode, right? So go back to motion design, select that, go into the 2D shape, create an ellipse, double click, right? We have an ellipse there, and then we'll just rotate that around -90, and then we'll just size it up. Okay, for the ellipse, you have to use under the shape mesh size, not the scale here. So let's bring it up. You can bring that up a bit, maybe 450. Let's view from the top, perspective top. Yep, it fits nicely. That's perfect. Let's go back to perspective. And for the disk, I want to give it a also chrome. That's nice. And we have to do a bit of animation for that as well. Okay, so select the disk here. Let's rename that. We'll call it a platform. That's going to be its resting location. To animate the platform, grab the platform from the outliner, drag it into the sequencer. And then click plus sign, we have to enable its transform properties. At this point, it's going to be exactly where it is. So I'm going to click on the plus sign for transform. And when at the beginning, it has to go down, right? So I'm going to just bring it down all the way. And if you look from the bottom, we have to put it like underneath the cubes here, right? Something like that. You can see that. Doors open, cube pops up. Okay, so it should be actually starting where yep, that works. Okay, so we have the cube and the platform working. Let's save everything, and I'll see you in the next part. So in this section, we're going to talk about how do we create this transition of the chrome to gold, and then the spheres will fly off. So this is achieved by using an effector. So we have our animation of the cubes coming up, and then they're spinning around, and then here is where we're gonna start putting the effector that's gonna change the color of the cubes from gold to chrome. Okay, so select the cloner and then scroll down until you see something called create linked effector. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna change the shape, right? If you notice now, the shape is a sphere, and you can see the effect that's happening there. Okay, I'm going to change the sphere to plane. Okay, and I'm going to rotate the plane in 90 degrees on the X. And now if I pull it up and down, you can see that what's happening there, right? At the beginning of the timeline, when the cubes pop up, they are in gold. And they're going to rest there for a second. And this is where we're going to bring the effector down. Okay, I'm going to just put the effect up here. And then we're going to create a keyframe for its transform. So I'm going to select the effector, go into the transform, click on the keyframe for the location. Okay, we have a keyframe there. Let's drop this forward until probably about 7 seconds, or maybe it takes 2 seconds to change the color, maybe 7 seconds. And then we'll simply drag the effector down, right, until we see that all the spheres are turned into chrome. We have a keyframe there. We are going to have two functions for this effector. One, of course, it blends the color from gold to chrome. And the next thing it's going to do is it's going to also make the spheres fly upwards. So select again the effector, scroll down, and you come to forces. You have to enable forces. So let's put it back here. Enable forces. I'm going to scroll down, enable vortex enable, and I'm going to enable curl noise and also gravity force. And I'm going to change gravity force from -980 to 200. And then I'm going to enable vector noise force enable. And what we can do now is if I were to bring the effector downwards, you can see that not only the cube, I'll put at the end here, you can see that it's flying off now. So because we have animated the effector, it's going to work that way. Not only it's going to change the color, but the spheres are going to fly off. So here is where we're going to play with the timing. Sometimes it's too soon. So I'm going to see that it's moving that way. Okay, so we're going to delay this a bit. Delete that keyframe out. So as soon as they're turning into a sphere, they're also changing color and then they are flying off. You will not be able to see this in real time, but when you render it, it's going to be cool. There we go, right? It's going to fly off. Okay, we might have to come and change the timing a bit, but the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the platform, that platform over there, go back inside and the doors to be closed. So let's also work on that. So I'm going to extend the composition again. Let's make it to 10 for now. I'm going to make this go forward. So as soon as they fly out, this platform should start going down. So this is a platform. We open up the transform. Let's drop a keyframe for it. Okay, we don't need the rotation and scale. So I'm going to drop another keyframe. The current position keyframe will be good. So I'm going to copy that, Control C. I'm going to drop it there. And I'm going to move maybe to around 9 seconds. And then I'll push it down. Okay, let's push it back down. And the door also should close so you can see that. Let me disable this effector for now. You can see that's coming and then it goes back down. Okay, for the doors, we are going to reverse the animation. So I'm going to come to about until the platform goes inside. That should be around 8. And then we're going to go to the doors. Right about there, the door should start closing. Okay, so again, copy this keyframe, paste that. And I'm going to copy the first keyframe and paste it there. So door now should. And we'll do the same thing for the door number 2. Jump back to this keyframe, copy that, select that and paste. Copy that, jump to this keyframe, select that and paste. Okay, now the door should be closing. Save. So we're done with the doors, we're done with the effector, we're done with the platform. In the next section, we're going to put in the camera and do some final touches. Okay, in this section, we are going to finalize everything. We're going to put in a camera, we'll do a bit of post-process, and we'll render this project out. We already have a camera in our scene here, it's Cam 35, and I'm going to put the camera into our sequencer. Start moving the camera around. Okay, we'll drop a keyframe there in the transform. And then we will do a bit of a cool little zoom out using the focal length. It's at 35 mm at the moment, so I'm going to take it to the end of the composition in this case. And then we will just zoom out to maybe 24 mm. And there we go, right? Maybe we can bring the camera up a bit. So let's go back to the camera, we'll lift it up a bit. Okay, I think this should be good. And then next thing we're going to do is we're going to play with the post-processing. I'm going to put a bit of glow on this scene here. So let's go to post-processing and let's just check bloom. Let's set to convolution. Let's put intensity to maybe something about like 5. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the skylight. Okay, the skylight is made out of a HDRI. If you scroll down, you can see it's actually from this Epic Quad panorama. You can actually change this to whatever you want. So let's play with this. So maybe try this Misty Pine so you get a different kind of color. Not that bad. And then we can bring the lights down a bit. So in the skylight, we can bring down to maybe 10. It looks nice. And then not only that, you can actually source cube map angle, right? This now is 38. We can actually turn it around until you see something that you like. That's quite nice. And I kind of like this kind of look here with the shine. It shines from the other side. Yeah. Let's set up a render here. I'm going to click on this clapperboard, movie render queue. So let's create a new configuration. I'm going to delete JPEG. Let's put in PNG. And then let's also put in game overrides. And then we'll put in the anti-aliasing. For anti-aliasing, I've tested it a few times. The best result you're going to get is by putting the spatial sample count higher. All right, let's say we try with something like 16 for now and leave the temporal sample count alone. You'll get this error. Just use override anti-aliasing, and in the output, create a new folder, Morph shoot render. Okay, select the folder and we'll leave the rest alone. 1920 1080 is fine. Override. Okay, so PNG, default rendering, anti-aliasing 16:1, game overrides output. Let's click on render. Okay, here we are in DaVinci Resolve. I've done a couple of renders. I was just testing it out. So the key to getting the good render is actually going into your render queue and upping the anti-aliasing. So the one that I got a good result would be 64 spatial sample count. Okay, this is kind of nice. The render might take a bit of time, but you get a good result after that. That's it from me. I hope you have learned something from this tutorial. If you have, please like the video, and if you want to leave any question for me, please leave it in the comments. If you want to see more of these Unreal Engine tutorials coming your way, please subscribe to the channel. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.